Hi everyone, welcome to week 2. I wanted to touch base with you just to give you kind of an overview of where I am this week on grading, what we can look for this week in terms of assignments, and then a little bit of a preview for next week. Um, First of all, I am running a little bit behind my typical schedule. I'm getting a little bit sick, and so I'm working a little more slowly than normal. My goal is to have all of your discussions and applied learning activities from week 1 completed, my grading completed and back to you by Wednesday evening. So today's Tuesday, that's tomorrow evening. I know that only gives you 1 day of turnaround before you complete the discussion if you are waiting for my feedback beforehand. It's possible to complete the discussion without my feedback, or this week only I'll allow 1 day extension if you want to do your initial post by Friday evening at 11:55 p.m. That will be fine just because of my delay in getting back to you. So if you have questions about that, let me know. But that's kind of where I stand and what my goal is. You'll notice that I spend a lot of my energy on a lot of my notes on your applied learning activities rather than the discussions. The rubrics for the discussions offer some feedback, and then I try to offer some comments as well, just to give you an idea of where the grade landed and why. But if you have any questions at all on any of those, please let me know. The next thing I wanted to talk about was just a few notes and kind of tips that we can learn from week 1's assignments. So the first is, particularly for the discussion, though, for all things, be sure that you edit, even a discussion post, even your response posts. They don't have to be perfect, but I do look for kind of small errors that you could catch or improvement in grammar, capitalization, word choice, etc. So please, before you push submit, read through those. Sometimes it helps to write them in a Word doc and then copy and paste. That way, Word, the grammar and spell check on Word can help you as well. It's an option. Pay attention as well to word count. Some of us are not quite making it, and some of us are going way over. So I do pay attention to that myself in my grading, and I hope that you do as well. In the same way that we're trying to get good ideas on paper, we're also trying to be concise, and so that's another skill that we're going to craft and work on. The last thing, particularly for the discussion, is a note to trust your own ideas. In the discussion prompt, it asked for what your definition of argument was, and I think maybe it could have been a little clearer in the assignment prompt, but what I was looking for, hoping to see, was your engagement with how you define argument, and does that match up with what the text says? Do you agree with the text completely? Do you not agree? Why? So rather than using someone else's ideas, doing a search or finding another source that defines argument, I really want you to begin to craft your own definitions or your own ideas by yourself first, so that I can see kind of how your thought process, your critical thinking is evolving. And then finally, particularly for the applied learning activities this week, I do accept late work. Maybe this was my fault for highlighting that early, but I noticed that quite a few applied learning activities still have yet to be submitted. So it is, while I do accept late work, it is to your advantage to submit your work on time so that I can get back to you in a timely manner, and then you can improve that much more on your upcoming essays, your final draft of the rhetorical analysis this week. So please get those to me as soon as you're able. Okay, so that brings me to this week. You will notice in the overview that we have readings in Everything's an Argument, chapters 4 and 5, and we also have readings in the Bedford Researcher, which is a new text this week. We didn't have any readings from that last week. From those, you'll pull ideas for your rhetorical analysis essay, and then I'll talk in a minute about how the Bedford Researcher readings can help prepare you for next week. So this week's discussion, we're doing a peer review on the rhetorical analysis essay. So like I said, if you have my feedback, that I think will help inform the questions that you ask in your peer review discussion post. However, I don't think it's absolutely necessary. So if you'd like to get it done, you can do that already. For the ALA this week, the Applied Learning Activity, it is the final draft of the rhetorical analysis essay. So it's not a new essay, it is just revising based on my feedback and the feedback from your peers, the essay that you submitted last week. Now, I didn't note last week much about plagiarism at all, but I do really want to take a moment to highlight that here. There's a plagiarism policy in the course guide, and I encourage you to read that carefully and thoroughly. We do take plagiarism very seriously here. What I want to highlight is plagiarism is using someone else's words or ideas or sentence structures without giving them credit or without changing them appropriately. So we will practice more of how to paraphrase, quote, and summarize well. But I do want to note that here. So be sure that if you use someone else's words, they are either summarized completely in your own words and sentence structures, they're paraphrased in your own words and sentence structures, or they are quoted word for word as they appear in the original text and then cited in each instance. So wherever there's an idea that did not originate from your brain, cite that and where it came from so that a reader knows that it's not your idea, and they then are given a clue as to how to find the source where it originally appeared. So plagiarism is plagiarism whether or not it's intended. So if you do it unintentionally, it still counts as plagiarism. So it's a very serious academic standard that we hold. So with this first final draft coming up, I want to encourage you to use Turnitin to your advantage. So you'll notice this week, rather than uploading a Word document in quite the same way that we did last week, you will upload to Turnitin. So when you click on the ALA for this week, you'll see Turnitin appear, and then you can post your submission. You're allowed to submit it several times before the actual due date. When you do that, you'll get a similarity report, and that tells you which portions are similar, coming back as incorrectly plagiarized or not cited from another source. So upload your paper multiple times through Turnitin, see what percentage is plagiarized, what it comes back to as, and then double check each of those. There are times when it highlights like the title of a play, for instance, if we're all writing about a play. Sometimes that title will appear as a similarity in another paper, and that you could say, yeah, other people reference the same title, so it's not an issue of plagiarism. But it's good to use that as a point to double check each time. So if you have any questions at all about how to do that, about how to interpret the similarities filter, about how to turn on the similarities filter, let me know and I'd be happy to help you. So that's plagiarism. All right, finally, the readings this week from the Bedford Researcher, chapters 1 through 3. These are to help prepare you for next week's assignment, which I do encourage you to preview this week. As you're doing the Bedford Researcher readings, it will help you to know what assignments are coming up next week so that you can prepare and start thinking about what topic you want to write about, what controversial topic. So next week there's an assignment called the Documented Argument. That's the first ALA. There's a second part to that, and that's called the Annotated Bibliography. And that, both of those are due next week. We will talk more about them, but again, reading the Documented Argument assignment prompt will help you figure out what kinds of topics should be swirling around in your mind this week in preparation for next week. So I do want to make a note. I would love for you to email me, your topics that you would like to write about for the research paper. So if you can email me your topics, I'll write this down below as well. Email me your topics for your documented argument by next Tuesday. So a week from today, you have 1 week to think this through so that I can offer you my feedback, give it the okay. There are some topics that are just not well suited for this assignment, and so I will steer you away from those if that's the case. So I want to give you some time to get that straightened out before your documented argument is due on Sunday. Again, if you have questions, always feel free to email me. Okay, one note I want to make about the documented argument. Again, we will talk more about this, but for those of you who are gearing up and ready to go for next week, It's a controversial topic that you'll be choosing, so a topic that has more than one perspective on it. And really, again, kind of zooming back, looking at the overall arch of this class, excuse me, and the assignments we're having, we are working on just the topic right now, choosing a topic, not really worrying about what our side is or what our position is on the topic. So first, we're choosing a topic, then we're gathering information about that topic, trying to figure out what are the different sides on the issue, why do these people hold these positions, and that's what we're doing for our documented argument and our annotated bibliography. After the documented argument, that's when we enter in with our public argument in week 6. And this says to our readers, okay, I've gathered all this evidence, I've weighed the different positions, I've tried to understand why each side holds its position, here's what I think and why. So we're withholding our own opinion and perspective until the public argument. So I'm anticipating that you'll have more questions about this, and we will certainly talk more about it, but I wanted to kind of give you that, at least that preview of what assignments are upcoming. So last thing, this week, you will be revising for your applied learning activity. You'll be revising the rhetorical analysis essay based on my feedback and the feedback from your peers. But one last thing, I want to encourage you to consider taking your work to the Writing Center. There's an online Writing Center available for online students, and so I very much encourage you. There's a link on the course homepage if you'd like to access that and set up an appointment. So until then, best wishes this week, and please contact me for any clarification or any questions you have. All right, take care.